All right, Steve, we're recovered alcoholic. Welcome to Big Book Compendium. Uh, so, we've pretty much getting to the point of the book. There's a solution that where this starts to get a lot of fun. I mean, not the other parts aren't fun. There's a lot of information, but this is where it kind of takes a life of its own. Because in the doctor's opinion, we learn some viable stuff. I mean, we have this physical craving for alcohol once we start, and this mental obsession that tells me to drink, even when there's a stack of reasons why I shouldn't do it. And then, of course, in Bill's story, we deeply examined his downward spiral, the doom curves, we called it, and the unmanageability. But then we got to read about his beautiful awakening into a new life. And, you know, for me, when I first got sober, I used to go to a book study called Big Book Comes Alive. It's 2000, whatever, and where I live. Um, and chapter 2 is when the big book really comes alive. And because now we're going to start getting into it starts tuning more towards program. Not that Dr. Spain doesn't, but this starts to really open up. And the title of the chapter is a very unique one because it's a promise. So we're on page 17. There's a promise because the promise is there is a solution. And there are those who say the solution is meetings. I've heard that before. I've heard others say the solution is God. I've heard people say the solution is spiritual awakening, the solution is the big book. One guy said the solution is kindness. Some people say it's all those. And I heard a guy once say there are many solutions, which always puzzle me because you look at this chapter, it's not titled there are solutions. There is a solution, plural. And the reasons why there's so many solutions out there in the fellowship is and ideas of what a solution is because not many know what a solution is. And I'm going to explain to you in probably the simplest way I can. Let me share the screen what a solution is. So you can see I 5 times 5 equals 25. So when I would do this on a whiteboard at a live book study, I would say, what's the solution? And someone would yell 25. Nope. That would be the answer, right? And I say, okay, what's the solution? Well, it must be 5 times 5. Someone would always yell at that. That would be the problem, right? So far we have a solution and problem. I mean, a problem and answer, but we need a solution to get us to the answer. The solution is multiplication. And so the solution, multiplication is a method that I use to bring myself to the answer. So solution is a method we use to bring ourselves to an answer so we can solve a problem. So what is the solution to overcome alcoholism? You know, and oops, the our thing's a little bit different, right? Close this down. Our thing's a little bit different, right? Is our problem, you know, is a lot deeper than 5 times 5, right? The solution to overcome alcoholism is what is the method we use to solve the problem, right? Our problem is the allergy obsession. What's our solution? Now, this is like top secret information, it seems like, but not many will tell you it's this. It's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There is a solution, and the solution is 4 through 9. That is the method used to bring me to the answer. A lot of people will tell you in book numbers too that spiritual awakening, but to me that sounds like the answer. Now, so we take the problem and apply the solution 4 through 9, and what is the answer then? I think it's whatever comes. It could be a spiritual awakening. Most likely it is all the other, but some people might say it's a freedom I got. For me, I had a spiritual experience, but the answer I got, was freedom. I had a freedom I never had before. But it's different for everybody. So again, a solution is a method to bring you to the answer. That's why it's called there's a solution, not called there's an answer. Right? So we're on page 17. So the top of this page says we have Alcoholics Anonymous. And who's the we? The we are the first 100. So, is and how it works, it says you want what we have, right? We heard that said many times. And that never made sense to me because I look around the rooms and I was very judgmental, and the meetings I went to weren't very solution based. This is way back in the day, in the 90s. And I would go, I don't want what these people have. And there was nothing over there. And when I was told you want what the first 100 had, and I started doing this process, I went, oh, now it makes sense. So we have Alcoholics Anonymous know hundreds, I mean, thousands of men and women who are once just as hopeless as Bill. And look at this, nearly all have recovered. There's that word again, recovered. It doesn't say some have recovered, it says nearly all, right? The book clearly states that you can be recovered from alcoholism. And from the title page to 164, it's in there 17 times. And I think recovers in there 24 times or something like that. It's, they both mean the same thing, restore to health, you know. And what is the result of being recovered? It's going to tell us right here in the book. They have solved their drink problem. They're not trying to solve it. They're not in the process of recovering, which means redoing 439. They have solved the obsession. They have solved the drink problem. We solved the allergy, but it's my new point because the obsession's gone. Now, this is some deep stuff here. We are average Americans. All sections of our country and many of its occupations are represented as well as many political, economic, social, and religious backgrounds. Are people who normally would not mix. But there exists among us a fellowship, a friendliness, and an understanding which is indescribably wonderful. I mean, even look around here. We got people from all over the world, different, political ideas, different economical backgrounds, social, different, maybe some religious ideas. Normally, we would not mix, you know, and if we bumped each other in the streets, we probably wouldn't, without knowing we're in recovery, probably wouldn't connect. But we are connected. Let's see why. It's going to tell us right here. We are like the passengers of a great liner. The moment after shipwreck. One thing I remember is the Titanic had, wasn't too long ago, 15 years ago, I think it was, or 20 years after this, before this the Titanic had sunk, so it was still very fresh. We're like the passengers of a great liner the moment after rescue from shipwreck, when camaraderie, joyfulness, and democracy pervaded the vessel from steerage to captain's table. Right, steerage to captain's table. Now, steerage would you could say is a cheap seat. It's the lowest paying job in the house, and they probably have the most important job because they're steering, somewhat steering where the boat goes and making sure it runs. They're not seen, so they're kind of hidden. They're making sure the boat is always in the right course. The captain's table is the most expensive table where the richest people sit, the well-to-do. And here's the truth, whether you pay for the most expensive seat and the house, or you're in the cheapest seat, you go down the same way as everybody else in that boat, right? You sink the same way, you drown the same way. When the boat is sinking, people from steerage and captain's table, what are they doing? They're working side by side. They're not looking at each other's resume, who has the credentials, right? Side by side to save life. People who normally would not mix or would never even talk to each other. Unlike the feelings of the ship's passengers, however, an escape from disaster does not subside as we go our individual ways. So after they have reached the shore, they save lots of people's lives, you know, um, the common problem, the boat from sinking, they all say, thank you, goodbye. Maybe they'll have a reunion sometime or something. I don't know. But unlike them, we stick together. The feeling of having shared a common peril is one element in the powerful cement which binds us. So, look around here again, all of us had the exact same common danger, peril, allergy, obsession, right? That common danger, a common problem, we'll call it, is what is what brings us together. It's our common. We call that fellowship, So what they're saying here is that fellowship is one element, and the power of cement, which binds us, just one. You think of like a glass of water, how many elements are in there, or a soda, how many elements are in there? They're saying just one element. Just fellowship is just one element. So how many elements are there? You know, powerful cement which binds us, just one. Bind means to secure and fasten tightly together. It also means to create emotional connection. Remember, I said we are connected. We're saying we're sharing a common problem is just a little part. So that's starting to get to a warning. Now, here's the warning that many fail to see, but that in itself, fellowship without the steps, just a common problem, just a common problem by itself, which most fellowships always seem to talk about, would never have held us as we are now joined. That's the warning. He is trying to convey that our fellowship is one element in the power cement, which holds us together. Just one tiny element. What he's also trying to say here is fellowship alone without the steps will not recover you from this illness. And so many relapse over and over again and never see this. And the point he is making really runs deep, even deeper today. How often do you hear people say, I relapsed because I didn't do the steps? Or I relapsed because, this, or because I realized I continue to harm people. No, I relapsed because I didn't go to enough meetings. You know, he's saying we cannot just go to meetings and not do the steps, right? And, since the birth of the speaker meeting, which was in 1964, the message being presented at meetings drastically changed from the program of Alcoholics Anonymous represented in this book to group therapy. Before that, it was just 1 hour speakers or two half-hour speakers, and they had to speak the program, they had to do the steps. You weren't allowed to even say your name, I don't think, unless you did the steps. And when this book was written, people were not allowed, a lot of people weren't allowed to speak, period. You know, AA success rate, you know, today is declined close to 90% from the 90% that these guys claimed. That's scary. The fellowship was not designed as a place to complain and dump your crap. Tell, drunkalog stories, be a comedian. It was a place to tell others how it works. And discussing and sharing that we have a common problem will not hold us together. That's why that's why, that's what they do at meetings though. But that's why some people say only know group therapy. So he's telling us very nicely that's how it doesn't work. Having a common problem brings us together, but that's it. It's like your badge of honor to get you in the door, you know. So the big question is, what is the glue that holds us together? That's because he says, when I hold us together, we are now joined. And look at this, the tremendous fact. So one thing about a fact is something proven to be true. It needs proof, and a fact cannot be disputed, meaning you can't argue with facts. People do, and usually people that have the facts don't argue because truth doesn't need to be defended. But it's like, meaning you can't argue facts, but this isn't any fact. It's a tremendous fact, and tremendous describes something as, I guess a good word would be like unremarkable, something, or undescribable, something like that. So he's putting it great importance. The premise fact for every one of us, remember there's only 100 of them here, and probably less than 100 at the time, is that we have discovered a common solution. So it's a common solution in steps 4 through 9 that truly connect us. That's the common solution. I mean, you could say 10, that's 4 through 9 though, instead, over and over again. And then 11 is God, in relationship with God, and 12 is carrying the message. But the common solution is those steps. And you ask yourself right now, I mean, think about it. I mean, does the fellowship today, is that what we see? Do we hear people talking about the common solution or the common problem? I mean, people are stuck so much in that common problem that brought them here. Um, in the first place, they have trouble even getting away from it. If you go to a good weight loss meeting, do they talk about the crap they ate in the past? Or do they talk about the food they're supposed to eat today, or what they ate today, what they did today? They talk about what keeps them healthy. You know, they know what the other food did. They speak solution of their solution. And I mean, I did a DUI school for quite a while. Well, I attended it before, but I also taught it. And the DUI school that I taught at, um, I would watch other teachers just get up there and just talk about don't get a DUI and don't drink no matter what message. I went up there and would have a big book in my hand, and I would talk about the allergy, the obsession, and here's what you might be dealing with, and here's your way out. And once in a while, guys would come up and go, "Hey, I need to hear that. Man, I never heard that before." And I was just, I was just giving what I had. And but it was so interesting that the other classes never offered that. There was never a solution. Look, it says we have a way out which we can absolutely, I the word for absolute is complete, completely agree upon. Again, we don't see that today. How many different ways are promoted? Like I mentioned in the beginning, there's a half measured way, sponsor yourself, don't take the first drink I mentioned, fake it till you make it, doing the steps, this is, my way or the slow way, whatever, my program, the church way, whatever it is, the lots of time way and the steps way is kind of, you know, swept to the bottom. And what's considered a success in recovery? The one who has recovered? The one who's did his fifth step? No, it's who has the most time away from drink. We celebrate what we're trying to get away from. Interesting. So we give people chips from your time away from drink, which is what we're trying to be to begin with. You know, it's really strange. But we're still focused on drinking. And how many ways is a newcomer exposed to? That's the most important part. You know, does that seem like a common solution that we're seeing? No. Does it seems like a way that we can absolutely agree upon? I mean, the Wizard of Oz, how many yellow brick roads were there? There's one yellow brick road that got to where they needed to be at, and they absolutely agreed upon it. Let's go back to the book. We have a way out which we can absolutely agree upon, completely agree upon, and which we can join brotherly harmonious action. That is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism. Now, that's the great news in this book, that we have a way out that we can agree upon. That's the beauty of this, that we can join brotherly harmonious action. There's only one way in this book, and it works. And the great news, it isn't carried very well as much as it should. Remember after this book, came out, things changed. All of a sudden, the fellowship had a title, and there was two Alcoholics Anonymous. So there's a fellowship, and there was the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they were, the same thing. One was a representative of it, and one was the actual program. But there was, now the fellowship, which is named after, no longer resembles the book. So we had two fellowship. I mean, well, we have two fellowships actually. We have the fellowship of the meaning and the fellowship of the spirit. And the fellowship of spirit, of course, is the powerful of the two, the steps. In the fellowship of spirit, we have five things. So this is kind of like the fellowship of spirit versus the fellowship of the fellowships. The fellowship of spirit has five things. We have a common problem. We have a common solution. We have a way out which we can absolutely agree upon. 4, we can join brotherly harmonious action. 5, we are recovered. In the fellowship of the meetings, we only have a common problem, right? We must do both. I mean, sure, we hear those other ones there, but it's a mixed bag. We must go to meetings and do the steps. We must do both. We need the whole circle and the triangle, the whole, all three walls of the triangle: unity, service, recovery. So, the unity part is, the fellowship. The service part is taking others through the steps, and recovery parts 4 2 12. The fellowship, the meetings alone will not change us. They it's almost like a very divided place sometimes. And here's a good analogy I've done many times is, let's say there's two convention halls, two large rooms right next to each other. Let's just say one room says lectures on God's will, all, and it says sold out, not, all seats filled, capacity, standing room only. Room 2 right next door says God's will, all seats available. And that's the thing, is the point I'm trying to make is people would rather listen about God's will than take the action, appropriate action to change their life and know God's will. People would rather hear a lecture. People would rather know about God than know God. I mean, there's churches that pack 10,000 people a weekend to listen about God's will. But how many of them are living it? They're content with their weekly fill. Getting a nice little lecture. Same thing's happening in A. Right up the street, let's just say there's a meeting packed to the rafters, 150 people with a typical speaker meeting to no little talk of solution. And then there's a bunch of people nodding their heads with agreement, everything the guy says, and laughing at the jokes. They're content with hearing about recovery than living recovery. But right up the street, there's a book study, a lot like this one. Well, it's still a lecture, but they educate you on the steps. They help take people to the steps. Maybe help you write your fourth step, and even help you, you know, to find a sponsor. But it's only a quarter full. Many of those that attend that study have, taken the appropriate action to experience God through the steps. Some are in the middle, and some are getting ready to do so. Do you just want to listen to stories about steps, or do you want to know steps? And you only know something is from experiencing them. And that's what's going on in recovery. There are those doing the work and those who just know about it. And I guess the reason I'm rambling on this stuff because there's so many die because they just want to know about it. They think that's enough. And this group is, groups our group is, we do a big book of pain. We're focused firmly on recovery. We turn down to do speaker meetings and stuff like that. But we're still listening about the steps. I want to see people pick up the pen and start writing and stuff like that. But so many enter the fellowship confused because they think the solution is meetings, and they're surprised to discover the solution is the steps. That's the truth. So many don't want to take action. Now we're going to start going into looking into this ugly illness, so to speak. So, some people call it untreated alcoholism, the illness. Others call it spiritual sickness, insanity, unmanageability. You know, um, the insanity of the first drink, whatever you want to call it. But let's look at it. And we're looking at almost like the dry person, so to speak. I'm on page 18. And it says, an illness of this sort, we have come to believe it as an illness, involves those about us in no other way, in a way no other human sickness can. If a person has cancer, all are sorry for him, and no one is angry or hurt. Do people walk up to a person with cancer and say, just quit this stuff out? Stop, this cancer stuff? Or, you're making a big deal out of this, or stop, you could stop if you wanted to, this stuff. No, they're sad. We're sympathetic for them and sad. We have compassion for them. As alcoholics, we feel the same way for an alcoholic because we have empathy, but people fire their sponsees and talk down to them. A non-alcoholic will never understand why we drink. They can understand because why we do the steps. They think we can stop because it's what they can do. Let's keep going. But not so with the alcoholic illness, for there goes alienation of all things worthwhile in life. To annihilate means to kill or destroy in large numbers, right? How many things did you annihilate in your life? What is the value? What is valuable to you? Your kids, your family, friends, job, whatever it is. It's common sense that if any of those things hurt or threats any of those things, we'll stop doing that behavior. The obsession doesn't care about any of that stuff. It does not care about your family, your kids, anything like that. Alcohol is like cunning, baffling, and powerful. What's cunning, baffling, and powerful, you keep drinking and using despite knowing all the consequences involved and that you can't stop for a reason. It doesn't go, oh, you love your wife, your kids, don't use today. I had a friend, and CA say it all fits into a pipe. Your kids, your house, your family, your bottle, all fits into a glass of booze. All fits into a bottle. It's so true. Look what else it says. It engulfs, submerges all lives who touch the sufferer. You know, all includes. That's the ones we love. This line pretty much is a good indication that we have harmed people. Our harm and resentments go from one life to the next. I love it when some newcomers say, "I only person I ever harmed is myself," or they say, I don't have it. I don't have resentments." What? You know, we put people through hell, but the only person they believe they harmed was themselves. It brings this. I think it's another excuse for people not wanting to do inventory or face the truth. It brings misunderstanding. No one understands us why we do what we do. But the biggest misunderstanding is we cannot comprehend that there's a life beyond where we're at when we're sitting there doing our thing. That's all part of the obsession. That's another reason why so many don't do the steps. Look at this word, fierce resentment. What's another word for fierce? Violent. Violent resentment. What happens when the resentment becomes violent? It's an action, it turns to a harm. That's where we go from selfish and the resentment to self-seeking and harm. I get a resentment towards Rob because he owes me $10,000, right? And I got a resentment. So it's just selfish. But I go kick his door in and give me the money. Now it's self-seeking and I've harmed him. It's another indication that we have done harm, fierce resentment. Financial insecurity. So here we get our first mention of an instinct, which you see in column 3. One of the biggest driving forces of resentment, harm, and fear is pocketbook, otherwise known as material security. Our solutions, an insane mind always looks for the solutions out here. And I'm going to look, if I get the right car, the right this and that, I'll be happy. If my mind is wrapped up in material things, my mind is very discontent. I'll be short and angry. This mindset leads to restless, irritable, and discontent. High anxiety, easily pissed off, not satisfied. Another word for insecurity is anxiety, right? Fear. It's a good indication we have lots of fears there. Disgusted friends and employers. I mean, strong disapproval, people disapproving us. Did your friends disapprove of your actions leading to resentment? Before or after you harm them? There's not a lot of talk about drinking in here, is there? A little bit. Sounds like my grandpa used to say this should be called emotions anonymous, because that's what we're dealing with. Sometimes for the first time in our life. And our friends disapprove of our actions, before or after harm. We harm lots of people. I harm lots of people. I know that. Who are just trying to help. And how many second, third, fourth chances do they give us? Same thing goes for employers as friends. Same thing. That's if we had a job. Did you ever have a boss say, there's before they fire you, you had so much potential. And some guys meant it. Why had one guy fire me, and I only took jobs that I could either get paid under the table or fit my criteria of not being drug tested. He said the hardest thing he ever did was fire me because I was one of the better workers when I was shut up. But that was like, it was a weird job. Warped lives of blameless children. Now, I'm sure some of us in here are products of an alcoholic home. Their parents drank. And maybe I sponsored one woman who never drank all the way through her first marriage, and her husband was alcoholic, and they divorced, and she became alcoholic. But are you the product of alcoholic home? Were you one of the blameless children growing up? And did you ever say, I'll never do that to my kids. I will never treat my kids the way my parents, did me. And a lot of us came from an era where it's a little bit different today as far as discipline goes. And you throw a bottle of booze into that parent's hand. We said we'd never treat our kids like that. We'll never, do that in front of my kids. I'll never leave my kids for hours and hours and hours. And then we wind up doing the same thing. Maybe not as much the physical part, but we, we do the same thing. And what disgusts me is when alcoholics act like they're the innocent victims. Their children are the innocent victims. Some of us harmed our kids so bad it takes years for them to accept our amends. But when they do, it's beautiful. Some that never, what makes me just sick to my stomach is I hear people in the fellowship say, I'll never make amends to my kids. It makes me sad. Blameless children is more indication we have harmed. Sad wives, again, it's the same thing as the children. How many seconds, third chances that their husbands and wives give us? I watch them, love and still love their husbands and wives and have no choice but to leave. But on the flip side, I've seen relationships reassemble, put back together again after making beautiful amends. And a recovered alcoholic and his wife go into happy, normal lives. It's just amazing stuff to be a part of and witness. I love hearing wives saying, or husbands saying, this is not the same person. They've changed. That's one of the beauties of the program. Look, it says parents. I mean, I just think of the look of disapproval on my mom's face. I mean, you guys probably remember that too. Or your dad's face. I just wanted to please my dad, make him happy. Remember robbing your parents of their emotional security? Some people don't realize that. When I made amends to my mom, I asked if I could make it right, and she said her answer was, I'm just glad I'm not getting a call at 4 o'clock in the morning. You're getting scraped off the sidewalk somewhere. And that's when I realized I robbed their emotional security every night. Again, who's the innocent victim? How many second chances do parents give us? One of the greatest gifts is the opportunity to make right with them, make amends. And it says anyone can increase the list. We could, but we won't. We'll do that in step 4. We'll look at this again probably. This paragraph is one of the first ones that kind of like ripped my spine out and said, look at this, and it opened my eyes so much. I was, I got some rebuilding to do. And it's, and sometimes even my first years in the program, I read it again and hear someone's breaking down differently. And I go, oh my God, I didn't look at all that stuff and more stuff to look at. But it describes a side of addiction that's rarely talked about at meetings. Again, I love meetings. Don't get me wrong. I love meetings. I go to meetings all the time. But you don't hear this stuff discussed. People rather talk about, alcoholic seizures and overdoses, going to jail, than talk about the pain they cause other people, their parents and spouses. So this truly showed me that, destruction that I had done. And I needed to do harm inventory. I needed some serious rebuilding. But it said in that paragraph, it engulfs all lives who touch the sufferer. I'm gonna do something called the circle of engulfment, and it just to show you how much we harm people. So this is a domestic situation I had. I wasn't perfect. I wasn't like a guy that ran around beating people up, but I had a domestic situation with this girl, and we were just like, I think it was just pulling each other's hair and throwing each other around, but it was like, the first person in the circle was Miss X, that's the girl. Then there were her friends, right? So now they're part of the engulfment. They're trying to break it up, and then there are the 2 friends that witnessed it. They're trying to break it up. She calls, someone calls her parents, so now they're a part of it. Someone called my parents, and oh yeah, by the way, the cops showed up. 4 cops showed up, who I wound up fighting. So now they're a part of it. You see how that one innocent, I wouldn't say it's innocent, but one act created more harms. There are 14 people in that circle. That's 14 people I had to look at making amends to, because it was ugly. It engulfs all lives who touch the sufferer. It's a mess. Yet people don't want to do it another one. I mean, when I was 23, I was engaged to a very pretty girl, and I'll be honest with you. I mean, I didn't know what I wanted. I probably wanted to hope maybe that they had money or something. I don't know. But I got cold feet, canceled the wedding. It was a small, but everything was purchased. The flour, everything. You could see all the, like, the mother paid for this, paid for that. People flew out there, families, relatives, you know. And then the mother's fiance was, she had serious mental bipolar type stuff going on, and she had a breakdown because of it, and she fired employees. I didn't realize that until after I made amends, and her daughter told me, and I realized I need to go make amends, you know. And people say, again, no harm inventory. It's not in the book. Why wouldn't I want to do it? You want to be healed, you need to look at this stuff. The only person I've ever hurt is myself. Give me a break. I never hurt anyone. To achieve freedom and move past this stuff we call guilt. The guilt, from harms or whatever when we look at is 4 through 9. Then we live in 10, 11, 12, so it won't happen again. In other words, this type of unmanageability is not fixed until we take action. I can sit on step 3 and I'm still harming people. I'm still nuts. Let's go back to the book. It says, we hope this volume will inform and comfort those who are afflicted. There are many. It doesn't say a few, it says there's many. Page 19. Highly competent psychiatrists who dealt with us have found it sometimes impossible to persuade an alcoholic to discuss his situation without reserve. That means with honesty, right? They're saying, cannot be honest. I mean, I saw a psychiatrist growing up, therapist growing up. Some was, when I was really little, I went to therapy like 9 years old because I threw a backpack at a kid and got stabbed with a pencil. And I went to my parents sent me this place with attack therapy. So there, you screamed at you, and that was my introduction to therapy. And then confession at 9 or 10 years old. But when I went to the therapy originally and confession at 9 or 10 years old, I felt like I was talking to an adult and I was comfortable telling them how I felt. But then once I hit around 13, I'm like, I'm not going to tell them everything about me. So I started making things up just to pass the time. So I started shoving things in, and, I mean, I started getting the fear of what they might think of me. So I didn't like, I would lie. And the more you lie, the bigger the lie you live. I mean, who's it? Thomas Jefferson says, we're the creator of our own reality. My grandmother used to say, honesty is the first chapter of the book of wisdom. I don't know why I thought of that, but it just popped in my head. But we create our own reality, I would push those people away. Strangely enough, wise parents and intimate friends usually find us even more unapproachable than do the psychiatrist and the doctor, meaning we lie to them as well. You see why Bill says rigorous honesty, complete honesty? But the ex-problem drinker who's found the solution, that's steps 4 through 9, who's probably probably armed with facts about himself, not theories, facts. Allergy obsession, you have that about himself. Allergy obsession can generally win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in a few hours. The confidence is not won by telling war stories. It comes by explaining to another what you learned in this book. I put this stuff in my body, I lose all control. And the guy goes, yeah, I got that, and I but then I keep drinking anyways. I got that, and use the words as an example. And here's why: until such an understanding of that allergy obsession is brought to the person, like Dr. Bob, Bill bought Dr. Bob, such understanding is reached, Lord, nothing can be accomplished. It's simple. It does not happen. Will not happen. And, that person's not going to want to work with you if you don't bring them something they haven't heard. And that's, you're bringing them a fact that they don't want to discuss with anybody. That the man who's making the approach, who's had the same difficulty, allergy obsession, not the same drugs, not the same alcohol, the same difficulties, allergy obsession. He obviously knows what he's talking about. That his whole department shouts out the new prospect he's a man with a real answer. What's the real answer? 4 through 9. And the results we get. That he has no hold. Here's the condition, very important, that we have no holier than thou attitude. That's the holier than thou attitude is the attitude of superiority, right? I witness sponsors talk down to sponsors like they treat them like shit, like garbage, from a high self-esteem, I'm better than you aspect. I'm bigger than you, you know, and talks to them the same way that the a-hole boss used to talk down to people. It's ego. They couldn't do it to anyone else, so they're gonna do it to them. Where's the spirituality there? Firing sponsees because they're not gonna do the work, talking down to them. You see, I cannot believe you drink it and they rub their face in it and all that. They get mad when, they don't listen and just let them, you're fired. The worst thing that happens with the holier than thou sponsor is that they put dependence on them rather than God. You know, I had a guy recently that got me as a sponsor a couple years back, and he would sponsor me and call him every day at 6 a.m. Finally asked him one day about 9 months into it, do I when do I stop calling at 6 a.m.? And he goes, well, you gotta do it another year now because you asked. And you got rid of him. You know, that's not our program, that's something else. Many sponsors who are truly altruistic, they're, many, there's will be truly have a life of how may I serve. They're not self-serving or deceiving. Let's go back to the book. No attitude holier than thou, nothing but a sincere desire to be helpful, that there are no fees to pay, no acts to grind, no people to please, no lectures to be endured, except for this one today, right? And these are conditions we have found most effective. After such an approach, many take up their beds and walk again. That's the miracles right there. How many people wrote us off? How many people thought we were dead? Better yet, I mean, not better yet, but the truth is, you know, right this second, someone just overdosed. Right now, someone just got in DUI wreck. Someone just got hit by a drunk driver. There's people dying all the time as a result of addiction. You know, people ODing every second. And we're real alcoholics in here. We're real addicts in here. Why not us? Why are we still here? That's the question to ask God in the morning, because you'll know, because God has a plan for you. There's nothing more beautiful than looking at yourself and thanking God that you're a miracle, because you have a terminal illness that you got past and you're recovered as long as you keep doing the steps. It says, none of us make a sole vocation for this work, nor do we think its effectiveness will be increased if we did. We feel the limitation of our drinking problems but a beginning. Wait a minute. I thought, from all those meetings I went to, I thought stopping drinking was the end of it. We put the plug in the jug. Don't drink no matter what. They have one thing in common. They've never admitted defeat. Those people who say that, they never admitted defeat. You gotta admit defeat. Because when you admit defeat, you want something new. You've given up, you walked away, you surrendered to being conquered. You want to get the spiritual progress, you want change. I used to, one of my dear friends in recovery was a counselor, but he was a big book counselor. So, I mean, he would say, you want the big book or you want or the clinical? But the one question he asked me out of my dozens of trips to his rehab, he would say to me, um, are you here because of consequences or because you don't like your life anymore? And I would say consequences. And he would look at me and go, okay, go in. The next time, consequences, go in. The next time I'd say it's both. And he would laugh. I said, why are you laughing? Because it can't be both. And then finally I got it. And the last time I went there, I said, I don't like my life anymore. You're not going to say you don't like your life anymore until you admit defeat. You know, when I got to that place of not liking my life anymore, I wanted to change. I wanted to be different. I wanted something new. I wanted to be free. Back to the book. A much more uh, a much more important demonstration of principles 4 through 9 lies before us in our respective homes, occupations, and affairs. So what's demonstrated in our homes, occupation, affairs is is the promises that we're like, such as we're no longer fighting anything or anyone. You know, is that we react sanely and normally, is that we can look the world in the eye, that we have new freedom and new happiness, that we comprehend the worst serenity and no peace. we've been rocking this new dimension, a fourth dimension resistance. That's why we're walking on the broad highway hand hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. The problem is obsession is no longer there. You know, which is which one of those steps does those? It does all of them. Every single one of those gets represented in our homes. You know, no, there's a reason why people don't trust us. Number one is they know what we did in the past, but all of a sudden they're seeing we're sane, we're normal, we're looking in the eye. They're kind of like, okay, what's this angle now? That's why it takes people a while to get us. We're not pretending, we're not acting these out. We're living them unconscious, or should I say consciously. People see that and they say, I want what he has. I want what she has. They trust us. And lots of people claim to walk this path. I know those who are over 30 years that do not demonstrate the promises in life. Know the book. There's nothing about them I want. See what it says here. All of us spend much of our spare time in that sort of effort, which we describe. When we call it avocation earlier in the book, that means you do something away from work that brings you joy. A few are fortunate enough to be so situated, we can give nearly all our time to this work. Talk about spare hours. What do we do with our spare hours? A lot of us are retired in here. What do we do with it? Do we go, okay, I can retire from my job and retire from recovery? No, it doesn't work that way. If you work long hours, what do you do with your spare hours? You got family and stuff, but you got to do this work too. I'm not saying that. I'm saying sponsorship. If you don't do the work, what are you doing with it? Whenever I read, if you're fortunate to they have all the time to give their spare hours to fellow sufferers. Um, you know, I think of myself because 99 before I got sober, I broke my back. And um I'm no longer working. I haven't worked in um 25 years. And early on in recovery, you know, people would say you need to make this a way of life for you because you're gonna go crazy. But I did the steps and I saw what they meant. I started getting antsy a little bit, even after the steps, and I went to a meeting at 6 a.m. every day. And then once I got to amends, I just filled it up with, keep myself busy, and we have a motto in my house here. So my kids don't get too out of control. I try to keep them busy doing things, sports and everything like that, because I know when we get lazy, what happens, especially kids, you know, but when I broke my back, it was like, I'm able to give so much time to it. My spare time gets smaller and smaller because I have kids and stuff, but I still make it happen. There was one guy I knew at this one rehab. I would get there at like 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. on a Friday to hear a fifth step, and the guy'd be leaving. And I found he'd get there like at 5 in the morning when they had breakfast, and he would take guys be working with guys to the steps, and he would leave. He was leaving from work, go home and sleep, go back to work. He would get off work 9, 10 hour shifts and show up at the rehab. Blew my mind. You know, you got to think about the first 100 in the Fair Labor Act. I brought this up before, but in 1938 they started talking about, well, we can't make these people work 90 hours a week or whatever it was. They started passing the Free Labor Act, or Fair Labor Act, not free, Fair Labor Act, which made the 40-hour work week and minimum wage and all that stuff. And these guys you're talking to depression. They had 3 or 4 jobs. And they're the guys who helped write this book. Bill's talking about what he saw around him. People working double jobs and double shifts. And Free Labor Act did not go into existence until 1940. So when he wrote this book, there's people working long hours, and this is depression. Think about that. These guys are no joke. If we keep on the way we're going, there's little doubt that much good will result. But the surface of the problem would hardly be scratched. Those of us who live in large cities are overcome by the by the reflection that close by are hundreds are dropping into oblivion every day. Yes, I see that people relapsing all the time. It's sad. And here's why. Many could recover if they had the opportunity we have enjoyed. Meaning before you condemn someone and be judgmental, you need to take into consideration that person's not experienced what we've been exposed to. Oh, here comes this guy talking at the meeting again. He doesn't know shit and all this stuff. This guy's never been exposed to the steps. He's never had it. No one's ever given an opportunity of spiritual awakening. You know, they have not had the opportunity to recover. I remember sitting in a meeting and this guy rambled on, and that was early on. I thought it'd be cool and tell my sponsor, "Oh, this guy's an," I don't remember what I said. Probably he's an idiot or something, because I was pretty bad then. And he looked at me and he goes, "You know how hard it is to be that guy?" And I went, "Oh." I started to get it. I don't like being judgmental anymore. You know, how then shall we represent what's been so freely given to us? I don't know what it meant to be a real help to other people, and giving freely of yourself. Being real help to other people is you give freely yourself without comprehension of anything in return, without you know being ordered or forced to do it. You're just doing it because you're saving your ass. As soon as I experienced the magic of the program, all I wanted to do with my spare time was this, sponsor, and this, and keep doing it. And it's the way life is. It's the beauty of what we're doing. All I wanted to do was bring the message. And I always say, there's, you know, 30 something people in these groups and stuff. If one person listens, that's all that matters. If one person, if a light bulb goes on, and that's the same way, we always got to speak up. Next week, we're going to get into one of my favorite parts, the three types of drinkers. And I love it. So I'm going to stop the recording.